Imagine a place where the snow never melts, where the silence is so complete it feels ancient, and where, beneath the frigid hush, rumors swirl like wind-blown drifts, stories of vanished Nazi bases hidden under the ice, of secret entrances to a hollow earth, and maps older than memory hinting at lands free of ice long before they should be known. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, let your mind wander with us into the deep frozen shadows of Antarctica, where fact and fable mingle, and every secret beneath the ice is just waiting to be uncovered. Picture the year 1946, a world still trembling from the aftershocks of World War II. While much of humanity struggled to find a sense of normalcy after the chaos of global conflict, a new kind of adventure was being quietly organized. The name Operation Highjump whispered through military corridors, a secretive phrase surrounding the largest expedition ever to set sail for the most remote and mysterious continent, Antarctica. At its helm was Admiral Richard E. Byrd, a man whose life would become as enigmatic as the frozen landscape he set out to explore. As Admiral Byrd prepared to depart, the world watched with a mixture of curiosity and awe. There was an alluring sense of something forbidden about venturing so far south into a place untouched by most human hands. Antarctica was a land depicted in ancient sea maps and sailors' nightmares, more myth than map, nearly unreachable for most. The concept of sending over 4,000 men, accompanied by a fleet of 13 ships and over 30 aircraft, must have seemed as outlandish to many as planning a journey to the moon. Yet, this was no mere expedition for scientific curiosity. It was billed as a training mission, but the scale and secrecy urged a whisper of deeper motives. Imagine the cold steel hulls cutting through indigo waters, the hum of engines and the disciplined fervor of sailors racing for unknown challenges. As the expedition approached the Southern Ocean, the air shifted, biting and sharp, laced with the knowledge that soon familiar sounds would give way to the slow rhythm of wind against ice, punctuated only by the low groan of glaciers shifting in the perpetual twilight. The ice grew thicker each day, forming a labyrinth of floating crystals that reflected the pale sun, casting dazzling patterns across the decks. Admiral Byrd's journals, later published in fragments that inspired speculation for decades, describe his anticipation and the gravity of leading such a journey. The edge of Antarctica rose slowly, spectral and blindingly white, almost unwelcoming. Here was a land so old, so indifferent to human goals, that merely setting foot upon it felt like trespass. For the men on board, it was an adventure at the very edge of what was known. The world behind them receded. Ahead lay a silent continent larger than the United States, sheathed in myth and secrecy. In the distance, clouds stitched themselves to the horizon, hinting at storms, and the farther the fleet traveled, the more it seemed as if they were crossing into another reality, a place where time and history froze alongside the ice. With little ceremony but much resolve, they journeyed toward Antarctica's mysterious coast, where their footsteps would echo in a place untouched, not just by war, but by nearly all of human history. The very air carried the unspoken question: what secrets would the ice reveal, and what mysteries would it conceal forever? Let us linger on Admiral Richard Evelyn Byrd himself, for to truly understand the magnitude of Operation Highjump, one must know the person at its center. Byrd's name, even then, was spoken with a certain reverence and an air of adventure. He was not merely a naval officer, but a pioneer in the truest sense. Born into a prominent Virginia family, Byrd's life was shaped by ambition and the quiet allure of the unknown. His fascination with flight and remote places led him from the skies above the North Pole to the untouched expanses of the South. Byrd's early expeditions were marked by equal measures of daring and meticulous preparation. He was the archetype of the explorer, attuned to discipline, yet haunted by insatiable curiosity. When he first set foot on Antarctic ice in the 1920s, the world was listening. He became a symbol of what humanity could achieve when pushing past the boundaries of comfort and certainty. Decades before Operation Highjump, Byrd had already established a legacy. His earlier flights over the polar regions, his command of earlier bases on the edge of the world, and his willingness to risk isolation for the sake of discovery became the foundation for his mystique. Byrd's demeanor was described as both calm and resolute. Those who served under him recalled his steady voice, his patient approach to adversity, and the sense of safety his presence inspired even in the face of uncertainty. The cold indifference of the polar landscape required a leader unshaken by doubt. His confidence did not mean he was untouched by fear. Rather, he was a man who faced it directly, acknowledging the constant dangers that come with navigating an environment where frostbite could settle in minutes and storms could erase all traces of humanity. To imagine Byrd walking the icy decks of his flagship is to envision a figure cloaked not only in heavy fabrics, but also the weight of responsibility. Commanding a force of thousands in absolute isolation, he experienced the same fragile balance as the explorers of old, where nature's silent judgment was ever present, and the line between boldness and recklessness was always thin. Each decision he made shaped not only the fate of the expedition, but perhaps the very stories and legends that would ripple outward for generations. These characteristics made Byrd the only man who could have led Operation Highjump. His name alone lent the journey an aura of legitimacy and possibility. In his meticulous journals and reserved interviews, hints of deeper secrets flicker, suggesting that he was as much an enigma as Antarctica itself. And so as the cold winds buffeted his fleet and his boots pressed the first marks into unspoiled snow, the world wondered, what would Admiral Byrd truly find at the bottom of the earth, and would he be able to tell the world all that he saw? As preparations for Operation Highjump unfolded, there was a subtle air of tension that lingered beneath the surface. The official explanations, training, research, and logistical testing were repeated to the public in steady, measured tones. Yet, among those following the expedition with keen interest, a sense of something unspoken quietly took root. The sheer scale was unprecedented for a post-war voyage to such a hostile environment. Engineers, scientists, and sailors all found their expertise drawn together, their orders arriving with precision and little room for question. Equipment was checked and rechecked. Cold weather gear stacked in neat rows, crates of supplies tallied, new radio systems calibrated for the pure air. In the shipyards and briefing rooms, officers gathered in the waning months of 1946, reviewing charts and contingency plans late into the night. Among the crew, rumors began to swirl, suggestions that their mission was more than routine military training. Some whispered of Soviet activity in the region, of phantom aerial sightings, and even of strange weather phenomena reported by earlier expeditions. There were fleeting mentions of earlier expeditions encountering odd radio signals, strange lights glimpsed at the edge of polar night, stories that persisted despite the Navy's official assurances. Admiral Byrd, ever the consummate leader, maintained a careful poise, addressing both concerns and enthusiasm with equal gravity. In private, he emphasized discipline and the importance of readiness. Many recalled his words echoing through the cold corridors. The ice will test us. We must be prepared for the unexpected. His matter-of-fact calm provided a sense of stability, yet perhaps it was this very steadiness that stoked even more curiosity among those under his command. Outside of the military world, speculation thrived. Newspapers printed brief, tantalizing updates. Amateur radio operators and conspiracy-minded enthusiasts pored over ship movements and supply requisitions, trying to deduce the true purpose beneath the public narrative. Within living rooms and cafes, people wondered, was the United States looking for secret enemy installations? Or could there be something grander at stake, hidden beneath the crystalline expanse of the Antarctic? No matter the truth, those final days of preparation felt dense with possibility and restrained excitement. There was a recognition of entering the unknown, a place where the line between science and legend blurs, and where every shadow cast by the low sun might hold a secret worth the risk. As the expedition edged closer to departure, each crew member's breath mingled with the cold air, their thoughts heavy with anticipation, stepping into a chapter that, whether ordinary or extraordinary, would echo beneath the ice for years to come. The morning of departure arrived shrouded in mist and promise. The fleet lay at anchor in the chill dawn, hulls gleaming in the faint light, ready for a journey that would take them far beyond the edge of the mapped world. Long shadows stretched across the decks as sailors worked in silence, their movements purposeful and deliberate. There was a sense that once they set sail, ordinary life would fade behind them, replaced by a landscape few had ever seen. Families and press gathered on the docks, bundled against the cold, offering last farewells and hopeful waves. From the deck's faces looked back at the world they understood, imprinting the familiar, sights of friends, city skylines, and busy harbors. Images they would rely upon in the long weeks ahead when the horizon would offer little but sky, sea, and eventually endless sheets of white. Orders carried across the water, crisp and measured, followed by the low drone of engines as the ships began to move. A soft rumble replaced the hush of anticipation. Even those not prone to sentiment felt the weight of history on this day. The fleet's departure was not merely a logistical undertaking. It was a release into mystery, a parting of company with the known in search of something deeper, possibly hidden. As the coastline dissolved into the winter haze, a sense of detachment settled over the expedition. Days and nights blurred together at sea. Routines took on a meditative quality. The rhythm of ship life fostered a calm, constant as the rolling waves. Meals were eaten quietly, tools were checked and maintained, and equipment was prepared for the extremes to come. Only the occasional gull or passing school of dolphins gave evidence that life persisted outside these floating bastions of steel. Admiral Byrd maintained a steady presence among his officers and crew, his steps measured and purposeful. In his quarters, he reviewed plans as the horizon widened out of reach, the world growing unfamiliar with each nautical mile. Conversations often drifted to what lay ahead: the blinding light of Antarctic snow, the rumored mountains entombed below the ancient ice, and the possibility that, with every league south, they were drawing closer to unanswered questions that had haunted humanity's imagination for centuries. Gently, as the days passed, anticipation blended with acceptance. For both those aboard and those left behind, the journey became less about reaching a specific destination and more about surrendering to the pull of the unknown. A journey that, even in its careful planning, could only promise uncertainty and wonder ahead. After weeks at sea, with the monotonous roll of the ship becoming as steady and routine as breath itself, the first glimmer of distant ice appeared, a faint, jagged line against the gray sky. It was unlike any landfall the men had ever known. Instead of green shores or bustling ports, the continent greeted them with vast white emptiness. Sculpted drifts, ancient glaciers, and cliffs of ice gleaming beneath a sun that never set nor fully warmed. The ocean itself grew quieter, almost reverent, as if even the waves hesitated before reaching Antarctica's edge. The ship slowed, breaking through a crust of floating ice that thickened underfoot, the air crisp and almost sharp to inhale. Each man stood at the rail, silent, watching as mountains and plains of snow rolled out before them, unmarked by any sign of life, or disembarkation began in slow, careful order. Cranes swung supplies from hold to shore. Sturdy boots pressed tentative marks into powdery snow. The sound of footsteps was muffled, swallowed by the heavy air. The cold seeped through layers of clothing, a relentless and impartial force. There was little conversation. The landscape seemed to demand respect, awe, and a silence to match its timelessness. Establishing the first base camp was a test of endurance and will. Tents and prefabricated huts were raised in the lee of jagged icebergs and low snowdrifts, dull gray against endless white. Generators hummed, giving reassurance in an otherwise alien stillness. The crackle of radios and the rhythmic crunch of shovels replaced any idle chatter. Survival here was not assumed, but carefully won, each task a small defiance of the inhospitable world that surrounded them. Admiral Byrd made his first foray onto the ice with measured steps. His journals record an eerie sense of déjà vu, a familiarity coupled with surreal estrangement. Looking out across that empty expanse, he understood clearly the power the land held over any who dared approach. It was humbling, knowing that their presence was as fleeting to the continent as a gust of wind over a snowfield, soon erased, soon forgotten. For all the might and preparation of the fleet, nature quietly asserted her dominance. The wind sighed over the camp, the sun hung low and persistent, and there was the constant sense that beneath the calm surface, secrets untold by maps or logbooks lay waiting. As the base camp took shape, each man felt himself become a part of a story far older and larger than any single expedition. A fleeting presence in a land that endures beyond memory and rumor. The early days of establishing the main camp were a study in adaptation and determination. Each member of the expedition adjusted to the unique rhythm of life at the bottom of the world, where time seemed to blend into one long, pale twilight. The sun circled endlessly at the horizon, refusing either to rise fully or to dip below, casting everything in a soft, continual glow that was both soothing and uneasy. Setting up shelter was the first order of business. Men worked side by side, driving metal stakes into the ice and assembling fabricated huts with methodical care. The snow was denser than most had ever seen, compacted over centuries into hard layers that required both strength and patience to penetrate. Every action, from pitching tents to digging latrines, was slowed by the biting cold. Fingers numbed quickly, and even simple tasks became lessons in persistence. Scent sparingly. The faint tang of engine oil and the earthy aroma from crates of wool blankets sharpened the memory of home. Meals became a ritual, a brief respite from labor where laughter was hushed and conversation meandered between the day as progress and the rumors whispered back in port. Canned meat, biscuits, and tea were enjoyed with the quiet reverence reserved for luxuries when comfort is scarce. Admiral Byrd maintained his steady watch, overseeing progress with a sense of responsibility that went beyond command. His presence calmed many, a reassuring constant in the shiftless landscape. At times he walked alone between the huts, his breath painting clouds in the frigid air, pausing to gaze into the unbroken light as if listening for voices from antiquity. Within days, radio antennas sprang up around the perimeter, promising contact with a world that now felt continents away. The soft crackle of static became a gentle lullaby in the quiet hours, evidence that even here, far from everything familiar, they were not entirely cut off. As the routines of camp solidified, the men settled into the measured pace of survival. Each day was marked by small victories and careful planning, every moment softly demanding respect for the ice, the wind, and the vast silence that wrapped the camp like a patient, unseen presence. The Antarctic had set its terms, and the expedition learned quickly. Those who did not listen to the land's quiet rules would quickly find themselves humbled and perhaps erased by the indifferent white. With the camp secure and the routines of survival established, the focus soon turned outward. The objective was not merely to endure, but to explore the vast unknowns that lay beyond the fringes of their temporary home. There was an almost magnetic pull toward the deeper interior, a realm that for most people would forever remain out of reach and barely conceived. The first convoys were assembled with meticulous care. Tracked vehicles, known as weasels, rumbled to life, their engines humming quietly in the cold morning. Sleds laden with scientific equipment, rations, and emergency supplies trailed behind, ready to support the teams heading toward the horizon. The men wrapped themselves in layers of heavy wool and canvas, each motion slow and deliberate, every inch of exposed skin protected against the wind. The landscape ahead resembled a frozen sea, its undulating surface dotted with blue shadows and crystalline ridges, where old storms had sculpted the snow into hard, curling drifts. The atmosphere within the exploring party was quiet, each man absorbed by the enormity of the task. Navigation relied on the sun's faint arc, compass bearings, and the experience of those familiar with disorienting, featureless terrain. Progress was cautious, sometimes measured in yards rather than miles. Each step into the white wilderness carried the unspoken hope of unveiling something extraordinary, perhaps a new mountain range or a landmark hinted at by explorers past. The radio remained a lifeline, the constant link to base acting as a thread thinly stretched over a silent chasm. The sound of voices, even through static, provided reassurance, proof that civilization lingered, if only faintly, in the background. Yet the deeper they traveled into the heart of the continent, the more surreal it became. All color faded, all sound dampened. Even time itself felt slippery, difficult to measure when the sun refused to set. Occasionally, they would discover a patch where the ice had buckled, or a deep crevasse yawned beneath a deceptively smooth surface. These were reminders that Antarctica was both majestic and treacherous. It hid its dangers in simplicity, too much snow, too much sameness, until suddenly the ground gave way or the wind rose with an unpredicted fury. With care and respect, the parties pressed onward, pioneers upon a canvas that remained almost primordial in its untouched beauty. Every mile into the continent offered fresh wonder. The explorers realized that, out here, even silence becomes an active force, shaping thoughts and softening the space between moments. As they pressed on, each man became attuned to the breath of the land, a constant rhythm, slow and steady, echoing the heartbeat of a world that has always held its greatest secrets under ice. As the expedition ventured further from the safety of their base, a series of odd experiences began quietly weaving themselves into the rhythm of daily tasks. These were not the dramatic events of legend, but rather subtle signs that gave even seasoned explorers pause. Small details that, when spoken of at night in the comfort of a warm barrack, seemed to carry more weight than they should. There were moments when the wind shifted unexpectedly, carrying with it not just biting cold, but peculiar sounds. A distant clatter that mimicked voices, or the faint ringing of metal where none should be. In the stillness between storms, strange shapes appeared on the horizon, only to melt away as one drew closer, revealing nothing but undisturbed snow. Shadows moved across white expanses at midday, confusing the men's sense of direction and scale. Some wrote these phenomena off as tricks of light and exhaustion, but others wondered, in hushed tones, what memories the ancient ice was storing beneath their feet. On occasion, the sensitive equipment brought for seismic studies picked up persistent, unexplained vibrations. The readings puzzled the scientists, though the official reports attributed anomalies to shifting ice or distant meteorological phenomena. After a while, the mere act of listening out across the silent continent brought with it the sense that they were not entirely alone in the endless white. Admiral Byrd himself noted, in passages later excerpted from his private journals, that the environment occasionally felt charged with a curious tension, as if the continent itself was watching its visitors. He described a sense of being enveloped, of moving through a living landscape that responded in ways both beautiful and inscrutable. To Byrd, these moments became reminders that Antarctica is not just a place. It is an experience, a presence, both hostile and strangely intimate. The men spoke of dreams growing especially vivid in the thin, cold air. There were accounts of visions, a city of stone beneath the ice, flashes of green warmth from eons past, or endless tunnels stretching beneath the ground. These dreams were never discussed in the official logs. Instead, they lived quietly in the shared imagination, becoming part of a nightly litany as the wind howled over the frozen roofs. Despite the rigor of science and discipline, this place resisted full understanding. In the hush that fell after each story was told, the question lingered. Were these just the effects of exhaustion and isolation? Or were they fleeting glimpses of something much older, etched into the ice itself? The Antarctic remained silent on the matter, holding its truths close until the world was ready to listen a little more deeply. It was deep winter when the character of Operation Highjump changed, quietly but unmistakably. What had begun as a spirit of resilience and slow discovery shifted, gradually, into a tense urgency. After months of enduring the unyielding cold, strange weather, and a string of unexplained equipment failures, Admiral Byrd's leadership was faced with new and difficult decisions. Blizzards crisscrossed the camp with increasing frequency, burying vehicles in tents and towering drifts, and visibility often vanished in mere moments. The expedition began to experience more accidents, machines freezing solid, navigation instruments faltering, and long-range patrols reporting disorienting whiteouts that left experienced crews shaken. Supplies, too, dwindled faster than planned, and the days circled in a loop of repair and ration. Messages passed through crackling radio waves grew more frequent and urgent. The sense of connection to the outside world, already tenuous, grew thin and uncertain. Discussions were held in Admiral Byrd's quarters well past midnight, the air heavy with concern. The best-laid plans, it seemed, were not immune to the unpredictable moods of the world's most remote wilderness. Amid all this, rumors took root, quiet but persistent. Some said there had been sightings of aircraft in the distance, unaccounted for by their own fleet. Others spoke of mysterious illnesses, as if the ice itself carried maladies unknown to modern medicine. Official logs stood firm on scientific explanations, but among the crew, it was the unspoken answers that carried the most weight. In early 1947, as the circumstances continued to deteriorate, Admiral Byrd called for an early and orderly withdrawal. The announcement weighed heavily, blending disappointment with relief. Some had hoped for greater discoveries, while others privately longed to escape the relentless cold and the feeling of invisible eyes upon them. Equipment was packed, samples carefully crated, camp dismantled with care so that as little trace as possible remained. The return across the ice was more somber, marked by a slower pace and an undercurrent of retrospection. Each man knew the feeling of having touched the edge of the unknown. As they carried their memories home, they left behind many unanswered questions, most nestled silently in the deepening snow, waiting for another season. The retreat was not covered in official explanation or open scandal, yet it sowed the seeds of legend. With the world expecting a longer stay and greater findings, rumors about hidden discoveries and secret encounters grew tenfold. What had they truly seen in the heart of Antarctica, and what caused their sudden departure? These questions lingered, drifting on the cold wind, waiting quietly for someone to look deeper. When the fleet finally broke free from the grip of Antarctic winter and sailed for warmer waters, there was a distinct change not only in the faces of the crew, but in the atmosphere surrounding the entire operation. Each mile away from the ice seemed to lift an invisible weight, yet curiosity and speculation remained. As sunlight found its old warmth and familiar coastlines reappeared on the horizon, the men aboard reflected quietly on their journey. Their time on the world's frozen edge was now a memory, one as stark and dazzling as the land they had left behind. Upon returning to civilization, Admiral Byrd and his officers were met with a barrage of questions from the press, scientists, and government officials. Official statements praised the logistical triumphs and scientific accomplishments, citing valuable meteorological, geological, and engineering data. The tone was practical, measured, and quietly proud. Yet for every tidy report, there was a growing thrum of doubt. Why had such a massive expedition ended before its scheduled time? What truly happened during those long, silent days when contact faltered and logs grew thin? Byrd addressed the public in a series of interviews, his words carefully chosen. He spoke of the harshness of the environment, the technical challenges, and the remarkable teamwork of his men. However, in one now infamous statement, he gave voice to something stranger and more suggestive, hinting at the possibility that Antarctica represented not only a great scientific frontier, but perhaps a new threat or an unknown force that lay beneath the ice. The world, as always, listened with rapt attention. In that moment, the stark landscape of the South was transformed from a place of scientific value into a new theater for speculation, imagination, and wonder. Imagine the surface of Antarctica before the age of ice, a time so distant its memory lingers only in the deepest stones and silent fossils. As modern explorers trudged atop glaciers, their presence barely registered by the ancient land below, they could hardly imagine that, buried beneath layers of compacted snow, lay proof of something remarkable, a lost world that once flourished in sunlight and warmth. Scientific drilling and geological expeditions have, over the last century, drawn secrets from the most remote corners of Antarctica. The evidence, pieced together like a delicate mosaic, tells a story almost impossible to reconcile with the continent we know today. There are places where the ice is thin enough to allow drilling rigs to extract cores from the earth beneath. In those cores, paleobotanists have discovered fossilized wood, pollen grains, and even impressions of delicate ferns and broad-leafed trees. Under the pressure of eons, leaves have left their fingerprints in stone, revealing that the continent was once draped in lush forests, their branches teeming with life, and their roots reaching into rich, fertile earth. One must picture rivers winding between hills where dinosaurs once wandered. The air then was heavy and wet, carrying the scent of mosses and blossoms beneath spreading canopies. In this ancient epoch, the sun arched higher, and the sky glowed with unfamiliar light. Fossilized insects and amphibians from Antarctic rock samples show that ponds and marshes dotted a landscape now unimaginably severe, offering refuge and sustenance for ancient creatures. Even as the climate began to change, these ecosystems persisted, evolving and adapting, the echoes of their existence now layered within the ice itself. Field researchers describe an almost reverent sensation upon holding these artifacts. You can imagine the texture of a fossilized branch under gloved fingers, its grooves a silent testimony to a vanished era. The discovery of these ancient remains connects the explorers above with a time when Antarctica's rhythms mirrored those of faraway continents, when warmth spread across its valleys rather than cold. And so, beneath the 2 miles of ice that define the modern Antarctic, stories rest in darkness, waiting for the slow, patient work of science to draw them out. The rhythmic push and pull of glaciers is interrupted only occasionally by the human hand, seeking answers within a realm that is both physically demanding and intellectually awe-inspiring. Just as explorers like Admiral Byrd once gazed out over blank horizons in hope of new revelation, so today's scientists, knowing that even the deepest cold cannot erase the memory of sunlight that once touched the southernmost land. Picture a small research team, bundled securely against the elemental cold, kneeling at the edge of an exposed rocky outcropping. Around them, the world is a study in white silence, yet within the narrow band of stone that breaks the surface, a different kind of world is waiting to be found. The work is slow, careful, and often meditative. Scientists coax ancient layers from the earth grain by grain, alert to the possibility that the next inch of rock might reveal a relic millions of years old. The finds are sometimes so subtle that only trained eyes detect them. A pattern traced through shale, a leaf's shape preserved like a translation from another time. There are petrified trunks, their growth rings telling of long years in a climate rich with rain and warmth. In the valleys of the transantarctic mountains, fossil impressions of ferns and cycads emerge, plants that today thrive only in subtropical climates. These green survivors of distant epochs speak not only of a vanished habitat, but also of the world's restless transformation. At times, the discoveries seem almost whimsical. In some locations, the rock offers up fragments of amphibian bones or the delicate wings of insects. These creatures would have sought the shade beneath tree ferns, nested among mosses, and lived in concert with ancient rivers that once braided the land. Their presence is a reminder that Antarctica was never immutable. It was like all continents, shaped and reshaped as eons passed, sometimes a place of abundance, sometimes a land of hardship. The rhythm of fossil hunting itself is patient and methodical. Each promising area is marked, noted, and dusted with soft brushes. The sound of stone splitting under a pale sun is delicate, and when a new specimen is found, conversation slows, allowing the moment's significance to settle. Holding a leaf's imprint or a salamander's bone, it becomes easy to imagine rain falling softly on green canopies, with life moving gently in the shadows of trees. These fossils are not only scientific evidence, they are touchstones. Small, tangible connections to a time when the Antarctic pulse was much faster, warmed by an unfamiliar sun. They are a quiet testament to the resilience of life and the certainty that even where the surface appears barren, remarkable stories are hidden beneath. To understand the ancient warmth of Antarctica, geologists turn to the language of stone itself. Imagine the careful process of splitting open a dark, flat slab to reveal fossilized roots, the soft outlines of a tree's system forever preserved. Each layer represents an epoch, pressed gently into the earth by the slow weight of time. These layers become the historical record, inviting scientists and dreamers alike to trace the delicate narrative of a land utterly transformed. Antarctica's rocks speak in quiet, patient tones. They tell about the continental drift, that slow, almost imperceptible movement that carried this frozen continent from its position near the equator millions of years ago down to the pole. In these stories, warmth and abundance gave way to cold as the land journeyed south, and ecosystems once lush with growth went into retreat. Coal beds unearthed in the Antarctic Peninsula trace their origin to dense, prehistoric forests. Petrified wood found scattered across exposed hills testifies to a period when plant life flourished in temperate breezes. There is a haunting beauty in this geological conversation. Rocks that look unremarkable at first glance are, on close inspection, densely packed with secrets. Sandstones bear ripple marks that once rippled in ancient streams, while sediment layers record the changing fortunes of lakes and swamps, now long vanished beneath ice. These details offer proof not just of a tropical past, but also of the immense distance, both in space and in time, that separates modern Antarctica from its own origins. For many researchers, the greatest wonder is found not in the destination, but in the process itself. Studies are slow and contemplative. Each discovery is analyzed, compared, and placed within the vast jigsaw of Earth's shifting surface. As the evidence accumulates, a fuller picture emerges. The air grows thicker and more humid, the landscape green and riotous with old growth, until ice inexorably claims it all and silence settles in. For those who spend seasons in remote field stations, these revelations reshape how one experiences Antarctica. The biting wind and endless snow seem less severe when understood as younger than the memory of trees and birdsong encased below. Every stone, every fossil, is a gentle reminder that change is constant, that the rhythms of our world stretch far beyond the years of a single lifetime. Drifting further into the narrative of lost worlds, imagine standing atop a wind-burnished ridge of exposed rock, cradling between your hands a fragment of petrified wood found far from any living tree. The present reality is stark. Cold wind, endless white, and yet, this small artifact becomes a door to memory. The marks on its surface, worn into intricate patterns, speak of a time when the air in Antarctica was thick and blue, and rivers wove from foothills toward vast, sun-warmed lowlands. The traces of these ancient rivers are preserved as soft impressions in layers of siltstone and sandstone. Scientists working quietly at their field tables brush away the grains to reveal the old channels. Delicate traces of flow and eddy preserved for tens of millions of years. Sometimes, the sediment records not just the presence of water, but the press of roots and the clustered growth of pondweed and marsh plant, remnants of wetlands where dragonflies chased the fluttering shadows of cycads. Fossil pollen, microscopically small yet abundantly present in these layers, offers further proof. A continent once veiled in green and echoing with life. The painstaking labor of paleobotanists reconstructing these environments is much like reading poetry written in an unfamiliar script. By piecing together pollen grains, wood fragments, and mineralized river deposits, they can describe forests that shaded the ancient southern valleys. Tangled stands of Glossopteris horsetail rushes growing along banks, and the distant call of creatures now long since vanished. In places where ice now lies heavy, there would have been the scent of mud after rainfall, the coolness of shade beneath towering ferns, and the sound of running water over smooth stone. By bringing these visions to life, geologists and paleobotanists grant us the comfort of perspective. The bitter cold, the savagery of the wind, and the isolation that define Antarctica today are all but moments in a much longer history. Each fossil and sedimentary trace is proof that the land is not simply a void, but a manuscript still being revealed, its pages fluttering in the patience of scientific discovery. Just as you nestle deeper under your own soft covers, safe and warm, picture the world beneath Antarctic ice not as a lifeless margin, but as a library, a secret archive, where every stone, fossil, and dusting of pollen whispers an invitation to imagine a garden where only snow now reigns. Amid the careful documentation of fossils and ancient rivers, there emerged a different kind of wonder. Rumors of pyramid-shaped structures sighted in the satellite images and remote photographs of Antarctica's vast inland. Unlike the quiet proofs of scientific discovery, these anomalies fuel both the dreams of adventurers and the questions of careful researchers. Are they simply the result of natural processes? Or could they be signs of something hidden beneath the snow, tantalizingly close, yet permanently out of reach? The stories often begin with a photograph, a shadow cast at just the right angle, the snow smoothed into a four-sided geometry that evokes the memory of ancient civilizations. Enthusiasts pore over these images, tracing the crisp lines, comparing each angle and plane to the pyramids found on other continents. In the boundless field of white, the mind searches for order, a gentle yearning for meaning where nature's chaos has reigned so long. This is a form of visual pareidolia, a phenomenon where the brain seeks familiar shapes and randomness, a comfort in the endless ambiguity of ice and wind. Researchers, curious but grounded in their discipline, visit these sites with skepticism and sensitive equipment. Seismograph spikes show only the noise of shifting ice. Ground-penetrating radar reveals stratified layers of compacted snow and ancient rock, rather than evidence of chambers, steps, or hidden rooms. The lines are explained as the remnants of nunataks, mountains whose peaks have risen just high enough to remain exposed above the ice, their slopes slowly scoured into geometric forms by millennia of relentless winds. Yet, the speculation itself is soothing in its familiarity. There is an ancient human desire to find the extraordinary in the unknown, especially in a land where so little can be easily explained. Each season, as the low polar sun casts angular shadows, new images make rounds among explorers and theorists alike. Some locals and expedition members will glance knowingly at these pyramid forms, acknowledging both the romance of the legend and the careful skepticism that science demands. It is the rhythm of imagination, gently persistent, brushing against the hard surface of reason. In this way, the legends become part of Antarctica's fabric, not as evidence of ancient civilizations, but as a testament to our need to search for order in the wilderness, to find connection in corners of the map that have not yet given up their last secrets. Beyond the fossil beds and rumored pyramids, one of Antarctica's greatest unsolved mysteries lies hidden far below the surface. Lake Vostok, a vast body of water buried beneath more than 2 miles of ice. Its existence was suspected for decades, intuited by peculiar depressions in satellite data and subtle anomalies, first detected by Russian and British scientists in the late 20th century. Lake Vostok is not a small pond or a shallow basin. It is larger than Lake Ontario, a black mirror undisturbed by wind or sunlight for millions of years. For researchers, the allure of Lake Vostok is profound and gently unsettling. The pressure, darkness, and isolation beneath the ice have preserved chemical and possibly biological secrets from a time when the world was young. Microbial life here, if it exists, might be like nothing else on Earth, having evolved completely apart from the sunlit world. Each time a sample is extracted, great care is exercised to keep the ecosystem pristine and uncontaminated, an act of scientific humility in the face of true isolation. Teams working above the site, often in tents pitched against howling blizzards, monitor the drilling operations closely. Every meter gained is the result of years of planning and patience as heat and mechanical drills push through ancient layers. When they retrieve cylinders of ice known as core samples, the pieces glow faintly, untouched by light, until they emerge into the bright tents bustling with quiet anticipation. Within the ice, scientists find trapped gases, minerals, and sometimes ancient microbes, a living museum of the past. More tantalizing still are the prospects of what lies in the deep lake itself, perhaps strange extremophiles flourishing in the silent depths, species utterly unknown, or even clues to life's ability to endure in the harshest realms. Long before any physical evidence was extracted, these possibilities inspired gentle wonder and speculation. Was Lake Vostok a cold cradle for undiscovered evolution, or merely a dark reminder of how little we know about our own planet? The existence of such a body, untouched for eons, self-contained and delicately balanced, reminds us that the world's most profound mysteries are both physical and philosophical. What does it mean to peer into a world sealed away in darkness, layered beneath centuries of silence? Like a gentle pulse beneath the continent, Lake Vostok hints at stories deeper than any map, stories that ask us to listen patiently for the moment when the past surfaces into the present. Among the silent slopes and wind-carved ridges of the Antarctic interior, researchers make another kind of discovery, one not born of Earth's own deep history, but delivered from the cosmos. Antarctica, beneath its calm and unrelenting cold, is a perfect place to find meteorites. Its vast white surface provides a natural canvas upon which even small, dark stones stand in stark relief, each one a messenger from galaxies and worlds far removed from our own. The process of finding meteorites in Antarctica requires a special patience. Scientists, bundled tightly and walking with measured steps, scan the ice for rocks that bear no resemblance to the native geology. Each collected stone is logged, photographed, and wrapped carefully, its surface brushed free of rime and dust. The rhythm of these searches has a meditative quality, gentle and repetitive, as if joining the quiet pulse of the land itself. Among the millions of known meteorites collected from the Earth, a select few from Antarctica are more than simple curiosities. In 1984, a small team recovered a meteorite known as AET-found 001, a rock from Mars that traveled across interplanetary space before embedding itself in the ice eons ago. This piece of the red planet, preserved in perfect cold, became famous for strange patterns within its minerals. Formations some speculated might hint at ancient, microbial life on Mars. The scientific debate unfolded with calm rigor, as evidence was weighed with care, but the sense of wonder lingered. What if Earth's most remote continent carried clues not only to our own past, but to the possibility of life elsewhere? The collection of these stones links Antarctica to the very edges of the solar system, each specimen inviting slow contemplation. Where did it come from? What story does it tell about the formation of worlds, the violence and calm that shape a universe both tempestuous and serene. The scientists who spend long seasons recovering meteorites grow attuned to these questions, their work a quiet invitation to peer beyond the limits of our own planet. In the evening, when work winds down and the day's finds are logged, there is a soft comfort in knowing that here, at the planet's farthest margin, Earth's very skin is touched by the dust of distant realms. Sometimes, falling gently upon the ice, a single stone echoes the history of a place that has never truly lain still. Each meteorite, preserved in quiet, reminds us that our planet's most silent places are, themselves, in gentle conversation with the stars. Amid the scientific revelations and physical mysteries of Antarctica, another curiosity lingers, drifting somewhere between legend and scholarship: the story of the Piri Reis map. This fragmentary world map, drawn by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis in 1513, has prompted generations to question whether the southern continent was once known, or at least imagined, long before its official discovery. The map's allure lies in the stretch of coastline it appears to depict along the southernmost bounds. Some enthusiasts claim these lines resemble the northern coast of ice-free Antarctica, a vision from centuries before modern explorers ever reached its shores. In synthesis, crafted from fragments of older charts, reports from sailors, and inherited stories handed down in merchant harbors. For a long time, the rhythmic debate continued among scholars and quiet theorists alike. Most experts agree that the map's southern regions are more likely imaginative renderings of South America's farthest reaches, stretched and curved by accumulated error, wishful thinking, and the limits of 16th century navigation. Still, the idea persists. A lullaby of what-ifs. Could ancient mariners have glimpsed a green Antarctica, or shared knowledge now lost in the eddies of time and translation? What might these maps contain that neither their creators nor their present-day interpreters fully understood? The Piri Reis map's story is woven into other cartographic oddities. Accounts of lost libraries, stone globes, and forgotten navigators who may have sailed farther than modern history allows. Each map, with its curling script and cryptic symbols, invites slow meditation. At night, researchers tucked safely in their tents sometimes ponder these ancient puzzles, the soft rustle of wind on canvas echoing the flutter of turning pages centuries ago. There is gentle comfort in these w's, a reminder that, for all the clarity science brings, the shape of the world is always shifting, always open to the slow erosion of certainty by new discovery and lingering legend. As research deepens and scientific understanding grows, the weight of Antarctica's mysterious silence only becomes more apparent. Even with fossil evidence, radar-imaged mountains, and ancient maps studied with forensic precision, so many questions still linger unanswered beneath the ice and in the minds of those who visit. This is a silence that does not merely lack sound. It vibrates with possibility, a patient, ever-present stillness, inviting speculation and humility. Consider the vast ice sheets that cover entire mountain ranges and valleys. Instruments reveal a dynamic, shifting realm below, shaped by geothermal warmth, moving water, and hidden geological processes, yet much remains beyond the reach of observation. Each seismic thump or radar echo tells part of a story, but always with missing chapters. What unknown forms of life might exist in isolated lakes, having been cut off for millions of years? Could even traces of ancient civilizations or natural anomalies remain, waiting for just the right moment in time or a new advance in technology to reveal themselves? Within the unyielding cold and dazzling glare, there is a rhythm that quietly repeats. A world as remoteness reflects the gaps in our knowledge. Even the stories we tell of lost forests, ancient rivers, or the soft geometry of wind-shaped pyramids are tempered by the realization that discovery in this land is always partial. The pursuit of knowledge here is endless. Each answer lays the ground for another question, and each expedition feels more like a beginning than an end. The scientists and explorers who embrace this uncertainty do so with a gentle curiosity. In their evening journals, they write not only of what they have measured and mapped, but of the experience of being dwarfed by time and space, feeling the slow pulse of a continent that refuses to yield its final secrets. They find comfort in the echoes, in the shadows at the edge of the known, and in the possibility that some mysteries are destined to remain silent companions through the long polar night. Within the hush of Antarctica's gentle and implacable silence, there is space for reflection and imagination. The mysteries here are not a challenge to be conquered, but an invitation to wonder softly as the world continues to turn beneath the stars. As the sun makes its slow, endless circuit near the horizon, and the great expanse of ice stretches beyond sight, Antarctica compels contemplation. It is not merely a place, but an ongoing story, one that lulls explorers, scientists, and listeners alike into a gentle trance of curiosity and wonder. More than a repository of secrets waiting to be unlocked, it is a realm where the borders between reality and possibility remain soft as the snow beneath a muted sky. For every expedition that carves its path across the frozen interior, there is a quiet awareness that most of Antarctica's truths will linger, still wrapped in layers of ice and time. The land is vast beyond comprehension. Even after centuries of exploration, the tiniest fraction has been touched by human inquiry. Researchers admit a kind of reverence for what they will never fully see. The distances and depths are measured only in patience and sustained attention, a discipline cultivated not in conquering the unknown, but in honoring its silent endurance. In this stillness, rumors drift as steadily as snow. Legends of lost civilizations, strange shapes revealed by shifting ice, or uncharted realms glimpsed only through the language of satellite and shadow. All are sustained by the human longing for connection, for meaning in the blank spaces of the map. Antarctica remains silent, immense, and forever mysterious, calling quietly to those who would listen longer and look deeper, and offering a landscape where wonder is the truest guide. Facts are balanced by fable, each passing through the calm filter of Antarctic night. There is great comfort in the acceptance that mystery is itself a kind of answer, one that leaves room for both dream and discovery. Those who return from Antarctica often speak quietly about the experience, how standing upon its ancient surface changes their sense of scale and time. They recall the subtle power of the land to draw them into a rhythm far older and slower than their own. It is said that, beneath the calm, gentle attention of the white continent, the hardest questions dissolve, leaving only silent gratitude for the beauty and depth of things unknown. And so the journey concludes, not in resolution, but in soft invitation. Setting aside legend and speculation, we begin our gentle transit into what science has quietly and steadily revealed about Antarctica. Imagine the patient work of glaciologists, seismologists, and climate scientists, a community bound together by their shared respect for the continent's silence and subtlety. Their instruments are as delicate as the stories they pursue. Ice cores are drawn carefully from the depths, each one a frozen column of time, capturing traces of ancient air, pollen, and volcanic dust layered year upon year. These ice cores, sometimes stretching for thousands of meters, are like memory made physical. The uppermost layers record recent decades, but as the cores descend, they reach farther back, archiving the turn of millennia in their crystalline walls. Scientists read these layers as one might read a diary of the Earth's moods. They uncover episodes of warmth and cold, abrupt climate shifts, and the breath of long-gone forests through the subtle perfumes of trapped air bubbles. Every stratum whispers something about the world's ancient past. Temperatures, atmospheric chemistry, and the slow shiver of glaciers as continents drifted. Plate tectonics, too, is a quiet but ever-present force. Through the movement of vast geological plates beneath the surface, Antarctica's once lush southern land became a frozen titan. Rocks migrated, mountain ridges heaved skyward, then disappeared beneath relentless layers of snow, The patterns of earthquakes, the alignment of mineral grains, and the evidence traced in magnetic fields all support a narrative. Antarctica is not a static realm. Its transformation is ongoing, invisible, and immense. Even the mysterious subglacial lakes and mountains, when explored through radar and seismic surveys, reveal their roots in natural processes rather than hidden histories. The pyramids seen on satellite images are, when studied closely, the results of erosion, wind, and the sculpting hands of frost over countless cycles. And transformation, reminding us that even the most mysterious landscapes yield their stories when approached with patience, humility, and respect for the endless rhythm of the Earth. The enigmatic Lake Vostok is a relic of the planet's own ability to seclude and preserve. Its dark waters isolated and ancient, but shaped firmly by geology rather than legend. This measured, luminous accumulation of data does not erase the wonders of the Antarctic. It merely sets them in the gentle context of time. While science brings clarity to Antarctica, legends and myths persist, gently weaving themselves through icy facts. The continent's remote nature, its impenetrable silence, and the difficulty of direct observation invite stories to fill the spaces where data cannot easily reach. In the comfort of darkness or the hush after a long day of fieldwork, imagination rises to meet the unknown. Over the years, Antarctica has become a canvas for our deepest yearnings toward the mysterious. Some myths echo with the weight of ancient wonder, whispers of prehistoric cities, lost civilizations, or gateways to the underworld, inspired by the hollow caves found in ice shelves or by unusual natural formations shaped by wind and meltwater. Other tales surface in the retelling of real expeditions, their hardships magnified until the events feel almost otherworldly. A ship lost to shifting pack ice becomes a ghost story. An unexplained light on the horizon is given a secret origin. The famous tales of Nazi bases under the ice grew from the secrecy, and scale of military operations like Admiral Byrd's Operation Highjump, where gaps in official records gave room for speculation. Similarly, the hollow earth theory took hold, spun from misunderstood scientific reports, journalistic embellishment, and a longing for places unseen and unknowable. Even the mysterious shapes picked out by satellite imagery, the so-called pyramids, offer fertile ground for rumination. From a certain angle, the mind finds patterns in the chaos of geology and snow, seeing what it yearns to see, plans, portals, or messages buried for future discovery. Maps, too, become part of the legend. The Piri Reis map, studied and debated across decades, stands as a symbol of humanity's desire to connect our present to lost knowledge. Antarctica's daunting conditions make it the perfect incubator for myth. Its nights stretch long, its distances are immeasurable, and its landscape, even under the steady scrutiny of science, remains a place where curiosity and imagination can wander. Though scholars now largely agree that the map's southern reaches were extrapolated or imagined, its presence in collective memory lingers, a gentle mystery for late-night musing and fireside debate. What unites all these stories is not deception but hope, a quiet wish that the world's margins still hold secrets. Where, then, do our scientific truths and enduring legends meet? In the long silence of Antarctic twilight, this gentle question lingers as steadily as the wind. It is not a matter of dismissing one or clinging blindly to the other, but noticing the places where facts and stories quietly overlap, shaping a landscape both within and around us. Even as ice cores and geological surveys reveal the undeniable richness of Antarctica's prehistoric forests, fossils, and riverbeds, the shape of the unknown persists. Science answers questions with specificity. The pyramid-shaped structures are nunataks and ancient rock formations, the subglacial lakes protected by thickness of ice. The fossilized remains evidence of a warmer, verdant past rather than lost civilizations. A fossilized leaf, pressed in stone for tens of millions of years, feels almost enchanted when seen for the first time, Its presence is both ordinary and miraculous. In this rhythm, researchers themselves sometimes become storytellers. After long days of observation and analysis, it is not unusual for a geologist to set aside the technical language and instead speak simply of the wonder that keeps them returning to the frozen continent. The habit of calm, close attention, the careful brush on ancient bark, the mapping of airy valleys locked beneath ice, fosters a humility that echoes in both science and myth. Both approaches stem from the same well of curiosity, the same hope that the world is deeper than it seems. When myths flourish, they often flourish in the margins that data cannot yet illuminate. While the Hollow Earth theory or the story of secret Nazi bases find little purchase in glacial records, they persist at the edge of our collective consciousness. Their very persistence speaks not of error, but of yearning. The Antarctic, unconquered and largely unwritten, reminds us that not everything must be known in full to be meaningful. Perhaps the greatest comfort comes in knowing that legend and fact coexist here, not as adversaries, but as companions. The slow, rhythmic unfolding of scientific knowledge does not lay myth to rest. It simply invites myth to change form, to join the background harmony of awe and understanding. Antarctica, in its quiet expanse, offers room for both certainty and dream, softening the distinction and allowing the mind to wander gently between what is measured and what is imagined. Over time, what becomes evident about Antarctica is not a single dazzling revelation, but a succession of quiet unveilings. Scientific knowledge builds slowly, step by gentle step, accumulating much like the snow itself, one careful observation layered upon another, each season's effort resting patiently atop all that came before. This rhythm of discovery is marked by perseverance, humility, and the willingness to sit with uncertainty. Consider the scientists at work on the ice. Their movements are careful, their conversations often soft, the way whispers carry best in the clarity of polar air. Each new sample brought in from a drilling rig or each fresh satellite scan is examined with meticulous attention, data logged in neat, methodical notes. Sometimes, years pass before a theory can be confirmed by fieldwork and analysis. Sometimes the expected answer fades, replaced by a new, even subtler question. It can take decades for a single mystery, how Lake Vostok formed, or how meteorites became concentrated along certain blue ice fields, to approach resolution. And yet, there is a quiet satisfaction in this slow unfolding. Scientists speak of the Antarctic bug, a gentle obsession that draws people back again and again, not just for the chance of a great discovery, but for the chance to participate in a process larger and more enduring than any individual. There is pride in the precision of ice cores, carefully cataloged, in the symmetry of field camps set up according to tradition, and in the records handed down between researchers, forging a lineage of attention stretching through decades. The cumulative, careful work chips away at the edges of what was once purely myth or speculation. Each small truth, an insect's wing revealed in ancient shale, the peculiar chemistry of buried lakes, the mapping of windswept mountain crests, shifts the border between the known and the unknown. Yet as answers arise, the ground for new mysteries softens beneath them, and the mind is gently reminded that discovery is a continuing, lifelong process. Just as the continent itself resists haste, so too does its knowledge. With every season spent in observation and reflection, those who listen to Antarctica's quiet lessons become part of its enduring rhythm, a gentle pulse echoing through ice, story, and time. As the gentle tide of scientific understanding flows, the legends of Antarctica do not disappear. They evolve, softened, and reshaped by what is learned, but never truly fading. There is a deep comfort in the persistence of the unknown, an enduring allure that goes hand in hand with the facts. Even when evidence is precise and thorough, there is room in the heart for legend, a space held open not by ignorance, but by hope, curiosity, and imagination. In quiet moments, As wind plays softly against the tent walls, researchers and explorers alike sometimes pause to indulge the older stories. Why do tales of hidden entrances to inner worlds, secret wartime bases, and pyramid-shaped summits still drift through our collective memory? The answer perhaps lies in what such tales offer: a gentle resistance to finality, an invitation to dwell in a state of wonder. Unlike the tidy conclusion of a solved equation, legend provides a space for dreaming, for savoring the possibility that there will always be more to the world than we know. For those awake late into the polar night, sharing a cup of tea or a quiet conversation, these stories become a soft social bond. They are passed along in a rhythm older than even the continent itself, part of the timeless cadence that connects each expedition and researcher to those who came before. Legends are also practical, sparks for the imagination, encouraging each new generation to look a little closer, to ask gentle questions, to walk one more mile into the white silence, just in case something wonderful waits around a corner not yet seen. Myth reminds us of our place within the world's larger story. It allows us to be both discoverer and dreamer. In truth, the gentle conflict between evidence and legend is less a battle and more a dance, each changing and responding to the other's slow turns. The stories endure because they speak softly to our need for curiosity and comfort, for awe and belonging, especially in landscapes defined as much by what they conceal as what they reveal. As the ice continues its ancient, slow shifting, and the winds recite their patient refrains, legends remain, cradled in the soft folds between fact and possibility, inviting us all to listen just a little longer to the silences of the earth. As we drift deeper into the heart of Antarctica's mystique, it is helpful to observe the contrast between the way science reveals and the way legend enchants. The scientific method is deliberate and steady. It demands evidence, thrives on repetition, and welcomes skepticism in pursuit of clarity. Each measurement, an ice core's chemical profile, a seismic map of buried mountains, a chronology of pollen grains, is part of a process both calm and rigorous. These findings are laid out in journals and databases, their meaning unfolding over seasons and decades. Storytelling, on the other hand, belongs to the realm of the immediate and the imaginative. Legends and rumors find their way into the gentle silence of winter evenings, shared quietly between those who watch the stars spin slow above the horizon. These stories do not require evidence. They live instead on the hope for amazement and the comfort of shared mystery. Each retelling is a soft weaving of wish and wonder, memory and invention, echoing the fireside tales of every culture since the beginning of language. Yet the differences between these approaches are not a source of conflict. Instead, they are complementary, like two currents in a broad, slow river. Science offers sturdy stepping stones through the unknown, allowing us to make progress, to understand, to shape our world in practical ways. Legend offers buoyancy, holding us afloat when certainty is impossible, and encouraging us to search for the beauty hidden within ambiguity. Both help us navigate the landscape of Antarctica's past and present. One builds the map, the other invites us to imagine what lies beyond the edge. There are moments, of course, when the two gently meet. A scientific anomaly, a mysterious reading, an unexpected fossil or signal may open the door to a modern story, inviting both rigorous investigation and speculation. Likewise, the persistence of legend can inspire new questions or new expeditions, providing the first faint outline of a discovery to come. The rhythm of Antarctica, gentle and unhurried, reminds us that it is possible and even necessary for fact and fable to coexist. In a world too quickly divided between belief and evidence, Antarctica's endless white promises a place for both. Here, under patient stars, we can be both clear-eyed observer and quiet dreamer, letting science and story each weave their part in the great, unfolding tapestry of what it means to seek and to wonder. As our journey over the frozen expanse and through the pages of history continues, we reach a place of acceptance, a gentle recognition that some mysteries are meant to endure. In Antarctica, where the land itself resists haste and revelation, uncertainty is not a failing, but a quiet invitation. The rhythm of not knowing, of lingering with doubt and curiosity, becomes a comfort akin to the slow drift of snow. For scientists, accepting uncertainty is part of the discipline. No single season, no brief expedition can claim complete understanding. The grandeur and depth of the continent require patience and humility. Each hypothesis is provisional, each answer a gentle stepping stone to yet another question. The work is ongoing, marked by the seasonal return of sunlight, the slow growth of data, and the recognition that the totality of Antarctica's story lies far beyond any one lifetime. For storytellers and dreamers, uncertainty is where the imagination draws its quietest strength. There is solace in the enduring gaps, an opportunity to fill the silence with tales that soothe and intrigue, with whispers of warm jungles beneath the ice or ancient cities whose stones breathe only in the darkness. These gentle inventions do not obstruct knowledge. If anything, they help us remain open to anomalies, to beauty, to the dignity of a world that dares to keep some secrets to itself. Antarctica reminds us that the absence of certainty is not emptiness, but a field in which hope and discovery can take root side by side. It is a gentle rhythm in the mind, echoing the broader pattern of all human inquiry, a pulse that signals both progress and possibility. To not know is, in its own way, a form of serenity. So, when considering the continent at the end of the Earth, with its silent glaciers, its lost forests, and shifting myths, let us find peace in the long patience it demands. Allow the certainty of the unknown to wrap around the mind like a soft blanket, making room for both science and story, for wonder and sleep. There is a unique quality to the way Antarctica stirs the imagination and the heart. Beyond its scientific treasures and enigmatic legends, the continent acts as a mirror, reflecting back the deepest places of wonder, resilience, and longing within those who seek to understand it. Perhaps no other place holds up such a clear and gentle window to the universal themes of longing and humility. For every researcher, explorer, or storyteller who journeys to the bottom of the globe, there is a personal transformation that unfolds quietly, shaped by singular encounters with the land's vastness. The rhythm of polar life moves at its own pace, so slow and patient that the mind naturally drifts toward reflection. In the solitude of white days and clear star-pricked nights, people come to appreciate the small comforts, the warmth of shared company after hardship, the simple satisfaction of a steady meal, the camaraderie born of working in concert against an ancient wilderness. Antarctica's landscape evokes a sense of scale that is rarely found elsewhere. Its distances are so great, its silence so all-encompassing, that it clears away the clutter of everyday concerns. What remains is the essential human awareness of awe, of one's own fragile place within a world that endures beyond memory or expectation. Those who return from a season on the ice carry an inner rhythm with them, an attunement to slow transformation and the gentle pleasure of living close to wonder. They speak quietly, almost reverently, about how Antarctica's boundaries between science and speculation helped foster a new appreciation for uncertainty. Many report that, rather than being frustrated by unanswered questions, they find the unknown offers a rare kind of companionship, a soft reassurance that there will always be new journeys, new stories, and new connections between evidence and dream. The continent's blankness becomes an invitation, not a barrier. It asks us to listen, to slow down, to seek meaning in small details and broad vistas. In Antarctica, every step forward is an act of trust. Every night of unknowns a chance to rest in the soft certainty that mystery itself can be gentle, a companion carried home to quieter nights and deeper sleep. As the snow falls in endless curves and the silence continues its patient song, Antarctica takes on a meaning much greater than its mysteries and extremes. In the gentle, measured hours of the present, the continent serves as a reminder of the world's vastness and of the comfort that comes from knowing such wild places still exist. Today, teams of scientists from many nations work side by side at numerous research stations scattered across the ice. Their purpose is both urgent and quietly hopeful: to learn how this frozen land influences the weather, the oceans, and the climate experienced by every living creature far beyond its shores. The careful study of ice cores informs our understanding of global patterns in temperature, pollution, and natural cycles that repeat across tens of thousands of years. At the same time, Antarctica is set aside by international treaty as a place for peace and exploration. No wars are waged here. Ambitions are tempered by the immense impersonal power of the polar cold. Human activities follow strict rules meant to preserve what is fragile and irreplaceable. The rhythm of daily life is measured and calm, punctuated by routine chores, long shifts in laboratories, and shared meals that foster a gentle sense of community in the midst of all that loneliness. For those far away, this protected land is more than a curiosity. It is a reassurance. Even as the modern world races on, there remains a place where the pursuit of knowledge, the discipline of patience, and the allure of unresolved questions blend in a way that feels almost timeless. The comfort of Antarctica comes not just from what is learned there, but from its role as a guardian of wonder, reminding us that there are still blank places on the map, soft songs in the wind, and stories too vast to ever be fully contained. As you listen and drift, let your mind rest with the gentle knowledge that the world holds space for both certainty and mystery. The snow falls intentionally, each flake unique, and above the quiet research camps, the southern lights gently shimmer, a soft reminder that the unknown is not frightening, but beautifully necessary. As the night deepens and the world quiets around you, Antarctica's stories settle softly into the rhythms of rest. The mysteries, both scientific and legendary, do not insist on resolution. Instead, they become gentle companions, inviting reflection and soothing the mind with their measured persistence. In this way, the white land at the end of the earth is not only a site of inquiry, but a place to rest in the embrace of curiosity. We leave the wind-scoured rocks and ancient fossils behind for now, allowing our thoughts to drift as lightly as snowflakes over untouched plains. The legends, the whispers of lost cities, of hidden pyramids, of gateways beneath the ice, mix with the patient certainty of scientific discovery. They are woven together seamlessly, just as day and night merge beneath the endless southern sky. This harmony between what we know and what we wonder is a balm, a gentle welcome to mystery itself. It allows us the comfort of dreaming while grounded in the steady assurance that the unanswered questions will always be part of our journey. These are the rhythms that lead explorers to new horizons, scientists to peer deeper into ice and time, and listeners, like you, to find wonder even as sleep approaches. Tonight, as you rest, let the ancient silence of Antarctica cradle your dreams. Picture the ice sheets, immense and glowing in the pale light, stretching forever, a symbol of all that endures, all that might one day be known, and all that is content to remain mysterious. The world holds more than answers. It holds belonging, an endless invitation to listen, to wonder, and to sleep peacefully with the mysteries close at hand. Now, as your thoughts quietly float in the gentle, lingering current of Antarctica's stories, we come to the close of our long and patient journey. We have traced the footprints of explorers across the soundless white, sifted through the memory of forests lost beneath the ice, and stood poised at the threshold between evidence and legend, a place both calming and endlessly intriguing. Perhaps in the hush of this moment, you realize that Antarctica's beauty lies not just in the secrets it holds, but in the peace that comes from allowing some questions to remain unanswered. Its silence is never empty. It is filled with the rhythm of the wind, the vestiges of sunlight playing upon drifting snow, and the distant echo of lives and worlds long vanished. These are histories that hum softly beneath our own, reminding us of the patience and resilience that define both the land and those who seek to know it. As you sink deeper into relaxation, remember that the greatest comfort often lies in mystery itself, the gentle knowledge that, for all that we discover and confirm, there are places in the world and within ourselves that thrive on possibility. The ancient ice sheets will hold their gentle pulse through another season. The pyramids of rock and dream will remain on the horizon, softened by snow and the unhurried passage of sun and moon. The soft invitation to sleep carried on the same quiet wind that has always swept across the hidden empire beneath the ice. The land waits, and we too are allowed to wait. Quietly, patiently, trusting that the truest wonder is found not in endings, but in the calm invitation to imagine, to observe, and ultimately to rest. Allow yourself to drift, now cocooned by the gentle rhythm of Antarctic stories, where the unknown gives comfort rather than concern, where every gentle question is answered with silence and soft reassurance. Sleep well, and let the mysteries cradle you, just as the white continent cradles its secrets patiently beneath the stars.